This is in order to make sure that I don't speak for too long. I was kind of thinking about what to say and what to focus on, and I realized that it's been about 10 years since I had my last proper industrial sales training for teams. That was 3 days. And so we got 20 minutes, so I get to unpack a few things, be available for any questions. But just to kick it off, just to see in terms of live polling data. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then I'm going to have you guys raise your hands so I get a visual of where we're at. Is that okay? So question number 1, it's just a test question. Who is here? All right, yeah. You're still here? Okay, hands up, right? Okay, very good. Got it. So now we have everybody. So students. Got it. Startup people. Got it. Corporates. Got it. Engineering people. Finance people. General business, commercial type of people. Got it. Very good, very good. Thank you. Yeah, because, wouldn't that suck if I started talking about sales and I don't even do the most important part, talk with you guys, so I get to know my audience, right? So I have a sense of how to choose. Now, when I have only 20 minutes, what am I going to focus on? Because there's so much to say, right? What is not sales? Everything is sales, isn't it? So, like said, I have a lot of notes. I'm going to keep to as much as I can within the limit. I'm Sam. It's a great honor to be here, to be invited to present some of my learnings on selling in startup environments, tech environments, but also from corporates. Especially interesting is that right now I live a life of kind of finance and tech, which is two different distinct cultures. And then there's a lot of different cultures in the company, in the various countries we are valid. So that'll be interesting to talk about. But before we get into it, it also really started here. So it's always good to get a sense of the background. That's not just iPhones having worse cameras only 8 years ago. It is in fact not me who has grown up in 8 years. It is my son. He was very excited when I brought in the best pitch kind of check, right? Unfortunately, the currency on it is not euros, but nonetheless, good. That's from the demo day. I think right here is where we want to have a big round of applause for Chalmers Ventures, who kind of figures this thing out for us. And I really appreciate it, right? To build an ecosystem that is sharp and that can compete on a global level, because that's what it is about. Very little of sales and business is local. So you got to be amongst the best. During those days, we did quite a lot of crazy stuff to prove or test our product. If we have time, we will talk more details about that. I think that could be fun. This is why Trine exists. This has been static pretty much from day one. We exist to make the world better, faster. And this is why we think that profit with purpose, it's not really a choice, right? It's the future. It's how everything should be. If you can have profit combined with doing great things, why would you ever do anything else? Since we start and we have the benefits of startup or tech in our backs, speed and flexibility is how we make a tangible impact, and we do so every day on trine.com for people, planet, profit. You all can join. It's an investment platform. It's really, really good. To get a sense of what you all should be focusing on, this is what climate finance requires. That is trillions, not millions or billions, right? There is an insane amount of money that is required for the green energy transition. We decided as a world since 2015 in Paris to really go all in on this and figure it out. Performance so far, okay, good, not great, maybe, maybe shit, depends on who you ask. If you ask me, it's an insanely large opportunity that we got to fix, right? And in parallel, here is another big number with trillions. This is how much the banks of the world, the biggest banks, have financed fossil since the day we decided we should stop financing fossil. And you know, of course, that's insane. If you just compare the axes, you see where the money had to already be flowing. But fortunately, there is a few companies and a lot of people who are actually working on solving the mechanics, the underlying mechanics, to just redirect that money. Because the money needs to move, and that's where the lazy money goes. We'll fix that. But please feel free to help. That'd be good. A little bit more specifically, the way we have chosen to address the first part of the challenge is that we know that there's billions of people who live and work today in Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and frankly, even in Europe, with unsustainable and unreliable electricity. So at trine.com, you can invest in these types of quality assured projects, and so we make it very easy for people to invest with this direct positive impact on people, planet, and profit. So basically we do a lot of investment banking work, and then we package it up, put it online, so you all can invest and lend as investors for as little as 25 euros or as much as a few million euros by using tech into these high direct impact CO2 offset projects, electrifying the world, assuring so that when people who are, like say a country like Nigeria where we're active, 150 million people going towards, or 200 depending on the statistical base, going towards a doubling, right, within until 2030. So it's going to be the third largest country on the planet by 2030. And of course, everybody wants more electricity. So preferably not diesel generators, preferably more sustainable green wind, solar, which we do. So that's what we've done. It's roughly 1 billion kroners that's been funded, and we have quite good track record and scale. So 1 million tons of carbon dioxide, that's half of, no, actually all of Gothenburgians flying to Manhattan and back, although we don't want you to do that. But that's the avoidance, and then more than 3 million people with access to electricity. Point being that with a little bit of sales skills and other things, you can actually have a small group of people of 16 with your help using tech to just do this. It doesn't have to be that freaking hard. In terms of cultures, this is where we're active now, and to really get down to the sales part and pick some, this is going to be like a chapter walk. So many different aspects to dig into. On the left side, you'll see my first years on during Bosch Automotive, very corporate, very industrial. This is literally 300,000 employees, 130 years of practice in sales, 2 world wars, and they're still doing it, right? So probably the best just environment for anybody to learn. I was very fortunate, I think, to get those years. It's a very professional industrial buying behavior. You have buying center analysis. You have stakeholders. You learn very tangible things such as not fearing, no matter how young you are, to get into a room. You see a buyer on the other side, you realize that the buyer, the professional purchaser as a company as Volvo, or which was one of my customers, or GM, have been trained diligently to buy. Right? The difference is I have to sell, she don't have to buy. So we have to find a way, right? This is where the idea for me came, and realization of authenticity, transparency, honesty. You just ask, what's your buying process? Generally, they would be happy to share. This is her job. She's passionate, right? So you get to have an insight. Of course, then you take and solve her problem by matching her process with your sales process. In order to do that as a big corporate, you need to what? You need to do a lot of internal selling, because everybody else is not going to agree with what you just think is great for your customer. But to be honest, sometimes it can be very hard if I'm going into this meeting and I'm going to have a meeting with her, and I've read the tactical instructions for GM purchasing of how to put me in a room with no windows and preferably not invite for water. This is true, right, in 2008. This is not the case anymore. There was actually a Swedish guy who became the purchasing manager who went there and said, what the hell is this, right? You have to stop. But that was the environment. So to find something I like about her, I would have to ask questions and get to know her, because it turns out she is also a person with children and a shitload of problems. She would prefer to, go home in time and manage her life. So we find empathy, and we find empathy, of course we can find agreement. So you build rapport in a relationship. Solar energy, that was the German way. So you have this, 3,000 person startup, basically Bosch going, we believe in Germany, we believe in that, we believe in solar energy, right? They also believe in Germany. We believe in solar energy, so we're going to buy 3 companies, 1 publicly traded, 2 private, and we're going to integrate them with a bunch of Bosch people, I am one of them, on a 3,000 person startup. And so on day 1, we are ribbon cutting, the government is there, and then 3,000 people are just running to sell solar. And that's my life in sales and sales training and whatnot. I'm going to hook back into this later in roughly 7 minutes. And that's where I would say I got the best part of actual hands-on sales experience in my life. I call it Mike, Bob, and Eric selling. These were my 3 managers. Very distinct playbook, very streamlined. And I would say, in my view, if you compare Germany, France, Iranian as I'm born culturally, but in terms of selling, just the American culture is so professional, right? And they got it down to a T, and it was very, very helpful. Then you come to the 3 Trine logos, and you can see how crappy the first one looked. So it's a journey, is the point. As you progress. And right now we're at the far right, and I don't know, maybe we're in chapter 2 out of 10 on this movie or this book. There's still a lot to be done. So I think I did dive in a little bit on the selling in the industrial corporate environment. So I think it's better I leave that for more questions. Point there is to be made is that if you are dealing as a young startup or a small company or have ambitions to do so, and you're going to sell into them, you just got to know that they outgun you hundreds to 1. So you just have to be super focused with your time. Doesn't matter how big their budget is. If you don't have an actual deal coming up, you should see it as market research and move on. And a great tool to do so is ask for commitments. Basically, they're committing their time initially, but even a small LOI or something that shows that you're not just wasting time is important. In the corporate startup, there is chaos. Entrepreneurship is actually a word, right? But there's also a lot of opportunities in it. And as I did the poll and I saw who's mostly here, I think it's more prudent of me to spend the time on the more startup-y side of the things. But if you get an opportunity in your life to learn in these environments, that's not a waste of time. During this period in time, I was also, since this is when I was in the US and the reference I was made, I really learned the power of finance to simplify CapEx sales. I think that's important. So if you have something expensive you want to sell, I'd say Americans are very good with getting this done, and it's by financing it. So basically turning something that costs a few million kroners to a running costs. So in solar energy, it becomes very clear, right? You can either ask people to pay for the entire thing, or you can find a way of using bank financing to have people pay only for the kilowatt hours, right? And this change creates a lot of opportunity, makes it much more simple for your customers to buy. Another aspect and advice maybe is that if you can, and I think you should, choose to put your time on selling something that you think matters, because it makes your job so much more easy. It turns out, selling something that is people, planet, profit oriented, it's not really that hard. There is an entire map called the Sustainable Development Goals. If you don't know, you put that up on the wall and you start researching, and you see not only one opportunity like the one Trine is challenging, but many more in areas of water, in areas of partnership. There is a lot of opportunity to truly build products and use tech to sell things that mean something to you and combine people, planet, profit. Because how insane is it that the norm is that it's profit and then you can do good, like philanthropy. Of course, it has to be whoever gives the most benefit in terms of common good is the one who wins, the one who becomes most wealthy, right? I think that is important. So, but then you come to the startup phase then. You've decided to start your thing. You have nothing, you have a slide deck, and now you need to raise capital. But you also have a lot of strengths. And I think that's a part of the learning here, is that focus more on your strengths than worry about your weaknesses. It works. There's always a group, or rather like this, your job is to make sure that there is, and find the small group of people who love your product, even if it's not perfect. And it could be a signal of product market fit, for example, so that you don't waste your time. And the thing you don't have is a perfect product, or maybe even a product, but the thing you have is the benefit of a white canvas. You can ask questions. You can paint a picture and a vision of the future without needing to reference to your shitty luggage from last week because you didn't meet your targets, which is what every big company and corporate is fighting. So you do have a strength of not, you have the weakness of not being Titanic, but you definitely have the strength of being a speedboat. So you focus on that and you build around that. You sell your vision, you sell your resume, you sell your team's resume, you sell your artistic capability to build a beautiful slide deck that looks like you've been working for, Morgan Stanley for 10 years or Carnegie. You use services such as Fiverr or Upworks to have somebody for 50 euros design a less shitty version of your logo so that people will take you seriously, right? And anytime somebody comes in and says, but does appearances really matter? Then you say, yes, are you crazy? Of course it does. Just look at the world, right? It's human nature. Focus on what's important. You want to get to the next level. All startups seems to say we don't want to be corporate, and then they work their ass off to become corporates. Isn't that weird how we do? And it's the only thing we do is like, let's try to become a corporate, but we want to keep the startup culture. And then of course you come to a place, we have something. You've solved the cold start problem. You now exist. You might even have your first kind of angel tickets, and you got something. Now you have to sell the product or the service. So you got to deliver. You have to get feedback. You have to get a lot of, in my view, you use data, you use A/B testing. You understand that generally you have no idea, and 85% of everything you put in your pitch is absolutely wrong. I cannot tell you how, actually I would love to, but there's like so many examples of something that everybody in the room is agreed upon should work on Trine.com, and we put it up as a split test, and we just go, the people do the other way around. For example, people want more information available, but they definitely don't want to read it. Right? Super scary. It's an investment product. I want people to understand the risk. They just won't. They do not read it, right? So you got to figure out a way to make people consume and digest. Time goes fast. Then you're in the phase where we are. I don't have the conclusion yet here, but we'll see if I get to be invited back, next year or something. It's about selling performance. It's a scale-up phase. It's not the startup phase. You have had your product market fit. You're moving onwards. You probably have raised Series A. You've started recruiting a bunch of people who hopefully know more things than you do. You got to get them all to agree, right? And it's only performance that matters. Are you meeting your CAC? Are you meeting your LTV? Were your assumptions correct? Are you nimble enough to be able to change your assumptions and use your budget in a prudent way? Are you going to get smacked in the forehead? Like when, everybody says there is geopolitical risk and there's regulatory risk, but then, Oliver, you experience it, right? Pandemic was the same thing for us. It absolutely set the company back 4 years. The pain was insane. And that means I'm almost out of time. So I think here you got to just realize that it's about selling raw horsepower and your track record. And if you don't have that, you don't fight gravity, you just move on, because that's the only thing that's going to work. I'm going to skip the key learning slide. What the hell? Okay, we can talk about this later, but the last point here is listen to Bob. Always listen to Bob. Now, I'm going to show you. So Bob is one of the people who, I referenced to, is one of the three. And I was asking him when I started trying, and it was a particularly dark moment, and I said, how the hell are we going to do this sales part of it? And this is specifics about sales, and this is his reply to me. He said, follow up until they say no, follow up as if your life depends on it, and be creative. Find reasons to call, email, text, stay in their face and show the customer you genuinely care about them and their business. Follow up with ideas to help them move forward and constantly be learning, so you can share best practices with your customers so they become smarter and reference you. Pay it forward and you will see reward. And this is a very smart guy, this Bob, isn't it? So follow the advice of Bob. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your attention. And happy to take questions.
Thank you, Sam. And one of the things we are working with a lot here at Chalmers is pay it forward, that we would like to give back. And it's so nice to invite you to be here again. You were at Stena Center together with Oliver as well for a time. And now you have said always listen to Bob, but I think what we will remember here is always listen to Sam, isn't it? Yeah. There will be some more questions in the panel, but for now, I will say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And applaud again for Sam.